Thank you so much, Jacqueline, and everyone here at Tone Magazine as well. My name is Pamela French. I am the co-founder of Authentic Relating Ottawa. It's okay.
Note to self, read your notes.
It's okay. I'm so happy to be here today and so happy to support Tone Magazine. When I first arrived in Ottawa just over 20 years ago now, Tone Magazine was one of the first publications that I found, and it allowed me to discover my tribe, many of my tribes, so many of the course offerings, healings, events, and people that are in my life now are as a result of me meeting them through Tone Magazine and what they offer. So, hi Shireen, thank you so much for the hearts. I really appreciate that. This is my first Facebook Live, and so I'm exercising my bravery and courage, as Brene Brown would say. So, for those of you who know me well and those of you who are about to know me, you should know that I am all about ease and flow. And I really appreciate Moira mentioning that earlier, because there is nothing like living a life of ease. And for years now, I've been leading events through Authentic Relating Ottawa for 5 years now, and I've been using the word non-judgmental. Let's create a non-judgmental space. Let's all practice being non-judgmental. And it was frustrating for me because I was still judging, and judgments were still coming up for me, and I would hear them and then set them aside and keep trying to practice being non-judgmental, but it felt like a lot of effort for me. And then one day I was taking this course on ownership and how to really own our feelings and our emotions and portray that through our language. And I realized in this course that I'm going to make judgments for the rest of my life. And sometimes that's really valuable. It's really valuable to evaluate a situation and know whether or not you're safe, and to have judgments about what you should and should not do. And that there are layers, like judgment. Let's consider myself as an onion and you as an onion, and judgments are just the top layer of that onion. And if I peel off the layer of what's underneath the judgments, oh boy, is there some juiciness, and sometimes a little bit of tears too. But that's good, because there's a release inside of that for me. And so Brene Brown talks a lot about vulnerability, and she's a big inspiration to me right now. And judgments come up when we're in a space of not wanting to share what we're ashamed of, or to show some sort of vulnerability. And the tools that I'm going to share with you today are designed to help you discover what is that thing underneath the judgment that matters to you the most, that has meaning to you, that you value something in your life as a result of that. And how can you turn that noticing, that self-awareness, into conversations with people that you may be judging, or people that may be expressing judgments to you, turn them into conversations that really foster meaningful connection, instead of having this back and forth, argument about something where you both have really strong opinions, because that could be another word for judgments, to allow yourself to peel the layers of your own onion, or perhaps even peel the layers of someone else's onion. So I'll give you an example. If you want, in the comments below, I would love to see if you can come up with or want to share any of the judgments that you've been having. Maybe in the last half an hour, maybe today, maybe in the last week. Have there been any judgments that have come up for you and you're like, ooh, I'm not so sure about that? I had one, actually. So I live in a community household, and there are 5 of us that live in the house, and we all share the hydro bill. And we have a big front foyer that has these beautiful lights like the ones behind me. And oftentimes I will see that the lights have been left on, even when someone has left the house or they're already into the house and well inside their unit. And so I had this judgment of they should turn off the lights when they don't need them. And I started to feel really agitated, and I was like, oh, they are, someone outside of me is doing something and it offends me. That was my judgment. And that didn't feel very good to me at all. And so I sat with that and I thought, what's the next layer of that onion? And I discovered, it's like, wow, the next layer would be to say, well, how do I feel when I make that judgment? So when I say they should turn the lights off, I feel agitated. I feel frustrated. And in some ways, I feel a little taken advantage of because I don't want to pay that hydro bill. That's another layer of me sharing what's happening for me when I'm sharing this judgment. And then the third layer would be something like, if I have this judgment and I feel this way about it when I say it, what really matters to me? What is this judgment pointing to in terms of my own value system? And so I realize, wow, when I say that they should turn the lights off and I feel this like agitation and frustration, I notice that what really matters to me is that I'm scared. I'm scared that we're all doing this, that we're all using electricity when we don't really need it, that we're really using up the Earth's resources, and I see humanity like spiraling out of control with our use of things, and I'm feeling even more helpless as I realize that, because I'm not sure if what I'm doing is making a difference or if I could be doing something more too. And suddenly I have tapped into the middle of the onion, that source of what's really going on for me when I make that judgment. So when I'm going to approach my housemates, I'm not going to tell them that they should turn the lights off. No, I'm going to tell them that what really matters to me is that we use our resources wisely. That's what matters to me. And when I can share from that place of vulnerability, then people can hear what I have to say. And they can choose, how they want to react and whether or not they're going to turn the lights off. It's not about getting people to do something. It's about sharing more of who you are so people can understand you and connect in with you. Oh, Robin, my judgiest comes when I'm driving and someone does something like I don't like. Oh, yeah, like not signaling. That really upsets me too. So I'm curious, Robin, when you heard the 3 steps. So the first step is your judgment. And then the second step is when you say that, how do you feel? How do you feel when you're in that space of judgment? Yeah, and Shireen feels judgy when she drives too. I totally get it. I don't think you are at all alone in that. So I'm curious to see what the second layer is for you. How do you feel when you're in that space of judgment and you're driving and people are just not following the rules and it has an impact on you? You feel like a jerk. Yeah. And that's probably not the best feeling, I imagine, although perfectly okay in this situation. So then what's the third layer for you? What's important to you? What matters to you about this? What matters to you about this situation, or in general, what does this point to for you, Robin? And you value consideration. Yeah. Yeah, and so it might be really interesting to ask yourself, if you value that people are considerate for others and let them know where they go, or where they're going, or what they plan to do in terms of driving, then it might be really interesting to look at in your own life what's happening with you being considerate of others and the care and concern that you give in giving other people directions and letting other people know what you're doing and what's up for you, and to be able to express that that's important to you, to the people in your life. So our judgments may not necessarily be resolved with the people that we have a judgment about. The other thing I wanted to share about judgments, and I'd be happy to hear anybody more. I see there's 10 or 11 people watching with us right now. So if you want to share your judgments, feel free. And I'll go through them as I can. Is when you have a general judgment. So when we speak in generalities, if I talk about the world out there, it's difficult for people to relate to who I am and what's going on with me. And so if you can personalize it, so if I have a judgment about, I cannot stand politics. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to hear about it. I don't know where it's going, and it concerns me a lot. But that's a general, out there statement about myself. But when I peel the layer of that onion and I say, wow, when I make that judgment, when I say that statement, I'm feeling again like a little bit hopeless. Like there's nothing that I can do to change that situation. And that feeling of hopelessness is uncomfortable for me, so I make it somebody else's problem. That gives you a lot more information about what's going on for me in this moment right now and who I am as a person and what matters to me. And so when you find yourself making general statements about the world out there, if you really want to cultivate meaningful connections in your life, then I highly recommend that you also peel the second layer and talk about how you're really feeling when you make those statements, about what's going on for you personally when you think about things out there. Robin, thanks so much for sharing. That's really big to own. I can be the one who can be inconsiderate at times. Yeah, and so maybe you're also judging yourself when you come across a driver that's being rude or whatever. And yeah. Zoya, thanks so much. I judge neighbors who stay inside their homes and not even opening their windows on a beautiful day. Okay, and so the second part of this tool that I wanted to share with you today is that, and this is so powerful, let me tell you, if you are having a conversation with someone who is sharing judgments, you can peel the layers of their onion. So if someone shares with you a judgment that they're having, you can ask them, how do you feel when you say that? What's going on for you when you think that thought? And if they don't feel comfortable answering that question, or you feel comfortable making, dreaming up how they feel, you could say, wow, I imagine when you say that you feel frustrated and a little pissed off maybe. How does that land? And so you can peel that next layer for them. And then the third layer is really getting down to the core values of what matters to somebody and what they're showing you what matters to them when they make this judgment. And so you can say, gosh, when I hear you say that, I imagine that you really value integrity and people being considerate and communicating effectively. How does that fit? Does that sound like that's you and that's what matters to you? So when you start having conversations with people who are making judgments left, right, and center about how they feel when they make those judgments and about what really matters to them and what their values are, I can guarantee you that you're going to feel more connected to them. They're going to feel seen and heard by you, and that's going to help you develop meaningful relationships in your life. I'm all about meaningful relationships, work, play, anywhere. It's totally possible to peel the layers of these onions. So I hope that you found some valuable tools here today on how to embrace our judgments and how to let them show us what's underneath them and what matters to us and what's important to us and how we can use that to build meaningful connections in our lives. Thank you so much to Tone Magazine for hosting these speaker series and for having me here today. And I'm just so delightful to have survived my first Facebook Live. Mwah.
Thank you so much, Pamela.
You're welcome.
And don't go too far. I'm sure we have a few more questions. And just so you know, I promised I was going to bring my cookie.
Ooh, I'm going to go get one too.
There we go. So that was that one piece of my onion that I had to take off. Do we have any more questions that we would love to have Pamela answer? Oh, yes, yes. Your question.
I really enjoyed the examples you gave, both for kind of looking at yourself and then kind of helping out with a friend. But do you have any maybe particular advice for when you're handling the spousal relationship? It seems to be just that little bit more special and maybe more sensitive in helping them unpeel their judgment.
Yeah. And so I find that I'll just make sure I'm speaking close. So the question was about when you're dealing with your spouse and you notice that they're in a state of judgment and it's, particularly sensitive because I imagine if it's your spouse, you probably have years of patterns in relating going on. And so I would recommend to first make sure that you're coming from a place of curiosity and not judgment yourself. So it's perfectly okay for them to have a judgment. It's normal. We're all going to judge. So to be really curious about, I wonder what this judgment is saying. Like, I wonder what value it's pointing to. And then once you get to the value, so I'll take the point of the turning the lights off. So I had a conversation with my housemates, and I actually, in an empowered way, said, I want to know that I'm doing my part to help the environment. So I'm going to turn the lights off when I see them on. It was that simple. Like, instead of blaming them, I'm just going to turn them off. And I would like you guys to tell me if you see something that I'm doing that's hurting the environment, that I could do to help more, like if I'm not recycling enough or whatever. And so I enrolled them in helping me be accountable to what mattered to me the most. And so you can, if you feel like your partner is defensive, even though you're being curious, then peel the layers of your own onion. So when I hear you say that, I feel curious and like I want to make it better for you. And what matters to me is that we get through this to the other side and that we find a loving space to communicate in. And I need you to let me know what that looks like. Like, do you need some space? Do we talk right now? When do we have this conversation? And so it's really about making sure you're grounded in curiosity first, and then maybe opening your own kimono to start if you feel like your partner's being really defensive, and allow that to create the meaningful conversation and connection.
That's great advice.
Thank you. And it looks like, thank you so much, Candace and Grace and Shireen.
Oh, perfect. Any more questions from the studio audience? Anyone have a kimono that they want to donate to my... Sorry, that was awesome.